Welcome to our first support group, LGMD. I'm hoping that this is maybe going to be a regular thing, maybe once a month or so, and then we can have a speaker once a month. And I have the pleasure of welcoming Aleksandra all the way from Netherlands. It's been a great pleasure knowing you, Aleksandra, and you've really connected us all to the rest of the world in a very practical, enriching way. And because of you, we've now got a partnership with Treat NMD, and we're developing a registry with them, starting with SMA, and hopefully developing onto LGMD as well. And yes, but you can tell us all about what's going on, and the gene therapy and global scene and registries. So yeah, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, so one message that you should keep home today is that I always hope that people don't feel alone. You are not alone. We are together in this, and we have a global network of patients, researchers, doctors, pharmaceutical industry, and there is hope on the horizon. So if you take that home, I can stop talking now. No, I will continue. So I'm 55, I'm mom of four kids. My first daughter, she died of an hypoplastic left heart syndrome, but she made me a real tiger. When my son was born, I knew that something was wrong, but we had difficulty in finding what was wrong with him. And a week before his third birthday, he was diagnosed with Duchenne. I was 8 months pregnant, so perfect timing, not at all. And when my youngest daughter was born, I felt that there was something wrong with her. And then the doctor said, no, you have mental problems because you lost your daughter and now you have a new one and you cannot give a good address to it, and Duchenne is only for boys. And then I said, yes, but she is hanging the same way. She is not moving. I know there is something wrong. And then we decided to do muscle biopsy on my son, and they found that he had LGMD 2D, which is Duchenne-like, but also it can also hit boys and girls. So then we thought we have 2 kids with LGMD 2D, right? So the doctor in the Netherlands checked my daughter, and they said, well, it took us 11 years to get her the right diagnosis. So where we were really on top of it, it took us 11 years. I was wondering, how many of you do have a confirmed diagnosis in DNA?
I've got, and I think Eric as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I've only ever done the muscle biopsy. I've never, the doctor the neurologist that I went to said he doesn't necessarily see it necessary for me to do the actual DNA testing.
Okay, Melissa, I advise you to get another doctor. It's really, really important to have the right diagnosis, because the field of the neuromuscular diseases is really changing. And having a right diagnosis means that you have probably access. So I agree with doctors to do no unneeded screening when things are not there for a treatment. But for the LGMD and the neuromuscular field, the things are changing and we are going to a treatment or a cure. So having the right diagnosis will probably give you the difference between being able to get into a trial, to enroll into a trial. So, so in the Netherlands, we had a doctor that said, well, LGMD 2D is so rare, we cannot do anything about it. You have to adapt your home, you have to find a wheelchair. And that's it, we are going to follow him. And then I said, well, I lost a daughter and I'm really determined to make things better in his life. So we went to to the hospital of Professor Dubowicz in the UK. And a long journey on the internet brought us to Professor Mendel in Ohio. His first visit was when he was just 6 years old. And we decided to go every year back because Dr. Mendel has then seen more than 50 kids with LGMD 2D. And as it was a rare disease, they said there were 90 people worldwide then in 2008. So we thought that being with a doctor that have material to compare, it's the best way to go there. When Dr. Mendel saw, I think he was around 65, and he said, "I'm not going to retire before I have a treatment." And I looked at him, and I don't know how it is in South Africa, but here in the Netherlands, people retire when they are 65. So I was not sure, but so far, Dr. Mendel didn't retire yet. And he is now 80, and I think he's pretty close to a treatment. He enrolled in the first LGMD trial in 2015. So how did that go? We got a phone call from the research coordinator, and they asked if we would be able to come over to see if antibodies for the factor they used for the gene transfer. Didn't have the antibodies, so he was enrolled. In September 2015, we signed the consent, and we promised not to talk about other patients. I want to give you hope. I want to give you the truth, but I don't want to give you false hope. So keep in mind that every patient can respond in a different way to gene therapy, okay? Used his wheelchair before the trial daily. He went to school part-time. He was always tired. Being tired was his biggest concern. As soon when he had the gene trial, when he had the gene transfer in the trial, he felt muscles that he had never felt before. He said, "Mom, I can move muscles that I never knew that I had." So what happened in the trial? He had his blood flow divided from the upper and the lower stream. So they put a child's heart catheter into his, and then you have to help me for the English word, Eric, in his lease. So where you have the legs in between the legs.
Growing.
Yeah.
Growing.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. So there they put in the catheter. Then they splitted the blood flow, and the gene was circulated in the leg, 30 minutes per leg. And then they left they took the catheter out, and then it was going through the whole body. He had to take 60 milligram prednisone to reduce inflammation in the first month. And he was improving ever since then. Where the aim was to stay the same, he gained muscle strength. And he was less fatigued. So one thing that I have to add is that we planned to go with the whole family to the US, but then my partner was diagnosed with breast cancer. So we didn't stay for the whole year. I traveled up and down 10 times in a year. So it was really, really, it was the best time of my life, because I really felt that this was his life changer. There was one teacher that was concerned and said to me, "Well, I don't know, but your son really loved to go to the hospital." And I said, "Yes, because they understand him there and they know what happened, and he feels that it is a good place to be." We stayed mostly in the Ronald McDonald House, which was also very nice, because then you meet other families in same situations, and the kids can play together, and you as parent can also talk to another parent who is in the same situation. So that was really nice. The language was not a problem at all. He learned very well native English, and there was no problem. Now in 2022, I think has normal strength, and it's really, really a blessing. The trial stopped in 2017. 6 patients were enrolled, and I really see Dr. Mendel as the father of the trial. He is really always into the patients. I recently asked him to come down to Spain to see a movie, a documentary that was made about living the life with LGMD2D. And then he said, Aleksandra, I don't think it's realistic. I need to see patients. He is really into the patients, always patients first. The gene trial was proven to be effective, and now they combine the technology with the SMA babies who were in the same timeline. They got an IV, so their whole body was treated. Muscles were aimed not to be treated, not all to be treated, but because his catheter leaked, there are muscles that have been reached, so he's doing very well. Do you have questions about the trial? No questions? I'm not boring?
No, I just think it's quite foreign for us because
Yeah.
we don't have trials here.
No. You know what? 20 years ago, 10 years ago, there was nothing going on. You got your diagnosis and there was no hope. And now there is hope because there is gene therapy. The only thing is how to get the patients into the trials. And therefore you have a special duty. You are the one who have the key to get into the trial, because doctors in hospitals, they don't know you if you haven't been there. So therefore a registry is very important. It's the first step. And remember that all the data that you put in a registry is of extremely value. So I always advise to do a treat NMD registry, because then the data is accessible for more companies. You don't want to, of course, when a company sponsors a registry, it's very nice, but you never know who is going to be the first for a treatment or the best treatment. So your data has to be free, accessible for companies, but you also want to be secured that your data is treated confidential.
My first question would be that, okay, this is still, I do understand that it's not 100% experimental, but it is in a way because it's not yet FDA approved in America. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that I'm concerned about. So I would definitely do it, but I am concerned about that it's not yet FDA approved.
Yeah, you know what? We had the same feeling when Kaya was at that age. We knew that the logical step in how the disease was going on, he was in an electric wheelchair when he was 15, 16, I don't know. So in 2015, we thought, well, this is the moment, this is the chance we have. But I must say the evening before I was really tense because I knew what I had and I didn't know, I know that if there was any chance that Dr. Mendel wouldn't do it, but of course I was also worried, but he was doing pretty well. And we didn't have anything to lose. The only
that's all about the point where you are in your disease, I guess.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The thing is, when you wait until there is a treatment, well, the next important step is natural history about your type of LGMD. So when you are registered, you have the natural history studies, and they gave insight to how the disease is going to be. But then also all patients react individual. You know, there is, I don't know, FSHD is maybe more equal, but LGMD can vary in very many ways. So yeah, that's very important. And that's again as a position that you have as a key position, get access to a natural history study so that they know where you are. And well, I don't know about the criteria for a new trial, but in the past you had to be walking for 6 minutes. And nowadays we are much further. We know that there are different stages for patients. When you are older, it is not your biggest wish to walk again. It's maybe your biggest wish to breathe and to be independent, to go to your restroom or to comb your hair or to feed yourself. You know, for every patient is different. And I think that is personalized medicine, that you look where you are, in which stage you are, and what is your gain, what is the benefit of the trial. And I hope that now with COVID, everybody has been seeing how people can pass away in a very sad way. And I think the taking away the breath is really a worth death. So I hope that people now see if we can, we have to avoid that. And so yeah, that is what I hope, that companies not only focus on young kids that are ambulatory and they want to keep them walking because muscles are there for walking. No, they are there your whole life. They make you laugh. They can give you the power to hug people or to push people away, or, you know, anything that you need in life. Yeah. So
and the funding for the trials, so they will, if we are here in South Africa, we're on the registry, they know about us. Will they pay for the expenses? Because, you know, to go to America often, yeah, on your own account is a bit of a problem.
We have always been paying our own traveling and our own staying everywhere. The hospital paid for the treatment as it was a trial. And I think they are, the companies that now are working on a trial, they are getting there that you get paid for your travel expenses, but it depends on the company. But there's also advice to treat global. So not only in the US, but also in other parts of the world. And I really hope, because it's also in the benefit of the pharmaceutical industry, that we have big patients groups. And so I think that they are also thinking on, I'm sure they are working on global access. Yeah.
You guys are speaking about a registry. What registry is this? Where do we find the registry?
There is a registry. Eric, maybe you can tell about the Registry of South Africa.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a registry that I wrote with Muscular Dystrophy Foundation. But we also, I mean, it's really a patient, just for personal information, and there's a little bit of genetic. We are planning to store genetic information, but we are collaborating with TreatNMD, which is based in the UK, and they have created this global registry as a collaboration of many different research fields, and they've identified the most important fields that industry needs to develop treatments. So we are now we're actually rolling out a project at the moment to get the data for SMA patients, and we want to move it on to limb girdle as well. So we're piloting it at the moment with SMA, and then it will go over to Girdle, and we have a curator, and I'm managing the project, and we will then connect with members. And there's the Treat NMD have got an online database which you can access remotely and through a website, and they've got this whole workflow where they ask you detailed information about disease onset and type of muscle weakness and genetic diagnosis and radiology and things like that. So it's quite an in-depth data gathering sort of process. But once that data has gone into the Treat NMD databases, they are then anonymized. So they know that you come from South Africa, and they know your gender and a few other details. But then that information is made accessible to industry and into academics, and that's where they then do the research. Because there's such a broad spectrum of disease progression with the limb girdles, they need this data so that they've got something to measure when they do the gene therapy, and once it goes past the regulators to hit the markets. But so I'm working on an infographic so we can see how our data kind of goes to this registry, and then it reaches the industries and the academics, and then it comes back to us, just so we can see the sort of cycle. So that's what we're busy with at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing for this, it would be
can I maybe
beneficial.
just
Sorry?
add that our partnership with Treat NMD, we have access to the data sets for Duchenne, for limb girdle, as well as SMA. So there's nothing stopping us from, if you want us to, would want to give us consent, that we can add your data so long. You must just bear with us, maybe because we haven't used that data set before. It might take a bit of time to get all the data in and all of that until we're familiar with the data set. But if you wish to do that, we can provide a consent form, and then we can add you to the limb girdle data set already.
Absolutely. Yeah, in fact, today I actually, as a pilot for limb girdle, I had my own data captured and put into the Treat NMD database. So yeah, so that's
a milestone, Eric. Nice. Yeah. No, that is something that is really important. So registry, natural history studies, and then the most nicest thing about this is staying together, being a group, having contact with each other, nice webinars, nice meetings. Even from now, it is 6 months till it is Limb Girdle Global Awareness Day. I would inspire you to think about an activity that unites South Africa and put it on the map. Because when you are known, when people see you, when people hear you, they can get around you. So be active and motivate each other and leave no one behind, because we can learn so much from each other, and in our fear and in our hope, we need each other. So that is my biggest wish for all of you. I put my contact in the chat. You can always give an email and say, and please, if you have any questions, reach out, because you are not alone. And if I don't know the answer, I definitely know people who can answer you. And so will Eric. Eric is in the CAP. It's my last part of my talk. So we have a community advisory board, a global community advisory board. And that is, I think, a real powerful thing. We try to have talks with pharmaceutical companies who are working on treatments with LGMD, neuromuscular dystrophy, and we hope to speak for the patients for their benefit in trial. So, for instance, what can we do? What have been done by CAPS? There was a protocol for trials that you need muscle biopsies before and after a trial. And for the benefit of the patients, I think it's the best that there are as minimum cuts in the muscles that you have. So the Duchenne cap resulted in reducing a muscle biopsy from 4 to 3. They spared one. It's nice to have this network, and I think Eric, you also like to be in the community advisory board. We speak to so many different people. A professor from Leiden recently learned us about gene therapy, and we spoke about registries. And we are not talking about ourselves. The aim is not to speak for our kids or for ourselves, but to speak loud for all patients global. And I hope that in your loneliest moment, you feel that you are carried by us. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, please feel free.
Thank you.
Aleksandra, I just want to talk about the cab a bit more.
Yeah.
And the focus of the cab. There's an organization called Eurodis, and they focus on rare diseases. And part of their mission has been to educate these advisory boards for the various rare diseases, so that they interface and provide sort of advice to the pharmaceutical companies that are developing these drugs, so that it shortens the development time, and it actually makes them aware, makes these people that are sitting in these laboratories, they don't have any disability, and they live in this bubble, and they don't understand who we are and what our needs are. And then they go on this long development path, release this drug, which is actually not that useful to us.
Yes, that is what I tried to tell in the beginning. So when I had my first Treat NMD conferences, I was really impressed. There was a forum of the researchers, patients, and it was for once that the first time that they were together, and then the researchers were working on a total cure, and then parents said, well, I'm okay if you save his arms or his legs, we don't need a whole treatment. And that was the first time that it was made clear that the expectations of researchers are different than from patients. And also the timeline companies sometimes have. Sometimes companies decide to put a hold on a trial, but you as a patient, you cannot put a hold on your disease, right? We need to hurry up. But at the other time, you also want safe trials. So there is a tense field, but we have to speak out our expectations and our needs, because only when the communication is clear. And I think it was really, for instance, with my son, he has been in a trial. So his blood has been seen by the lab every month. And they saw the CK sky high and it lowered. And okay, that was the view that they had. But then when the trial was over, Kaya was invited to the lab, and we got a tour. And it was for some people the first time that they saw a patient with LGMD. And yeah, that is really an eye-opening. It's how can it be that you have never seen a patient, that you have never seen something has to change. And I think Eurodis is doing a pretty good job in educating. When you look at their website, you can do the free webinars of the summer school and the winter school, and you can also enroll for the one-to-one training. But they have saved, they have not so much spots, so you can be in the worst case, you have to wait for another year, but you can start. Go to eurodis.org and see what their webinars and education is, because you can learn a lot, and you can also use it for your own visits when you go to the hospital or when you have your patients' meetings. It's always nice to have to have it educated.
Sorry, Aleksandra, I was just thinking, excuse me. I would, maybe I'm naive, but I would have actually liked to see South African companies partner with some of these overseas companies. We saw it with COVID, companies like Aspen partnering with Johnson and Johnson. But so there's nothing that you are aware of. There's no company or organization in South Africa that are working in partnership with any of the overseas companies or organizations. This is from a commercial perspective, obviously, because I don't think it.
No, I don't know about that yet. That's my real short answer. But I also would turn it around. Companies are interested in all patients because when there is a treatment, they can earn money of it. So they want to reach out to other countries. So one way or another, you have to connect.
No, because I mean, there's a lot of people in South Africa who just won't be able to afford going overseas.
I understand that. Yeah.
There's poverty. I mean, Ghana knows more about the difficulties of getting people, even just to get tested.
Yeah. To get tested, it's very important. There is a project, and maybe Eric can invite someone from that project next time in a talk for you. But companies are also very keen on being inclusive. So it is not their intention to have a trial ongoing only for rich people or only for patients that can walk. They want to be inclusive. They need to be inclusive. So that's another thing I think that they are working on it. Yeah.
Hi, Aleksandra. This is Ramana. Yeah. So I mean, one doubt. I mean, in clinical trials, yeah, as we all know that there is an element of risk, like you mentioned. And yeah, our situation is like, okay, so my son is, I mean, recently diagnosed and he's quite all right. So I have a doubt in my mind whether to put him in clinical trials if we are eligible, or wait for an FDA approval and don't take a chance and then go with a approved one. That is one. Yeah, maybe I'll ask another question that related to this is, do we have any idea that now that in clinical trials, uh, um, we'll be able to participate in clinical trials and the cost of the treatment is almost zero, and we'll have to bear the cost of travel and other stuff. But when it is approved, do we have any idea? What I heard is the gene therapy normally costs a lot because it is not normal. I mean, do we have any idea what is that? And whether any insurance will support us or we are on our own. I mean, if you have to plan, or I mean, even if it is there, but if we are not able to afford, then it's of no use for us. Yeah.
Okay, so going back to your first point, if you have a kid that is young and just diagnosed and doing very well, you are blessed, so you have extra time. That's the first thing. Then the second thing about the cost of traveling might be covered by the companies. The cost of, in a trial, the cost of the treatment when it is on the market, it depends on several things. We have only when you look at Spinraza or at Zolgensma for the SMA babies, I believe that treatment is about 1 million or 2 million per person. But when you put that in line to the costs that are made for rehabilitation, for adaptations, for not being able to work, then it is a real small amount. The thing is that each country makes its own way of how much it can cost. I don't have too much insight on it yet, and I don't know what it is going to be in the future. But I advise Eric to ask someone to speak to you about pricing and about costs and the specific insurance situation of South Africa, because that is different in every part of the world. So I cannot answer that question. but I can put Eric to someone who can tell about that in maybe in South Africa or in perspective of the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aleksandra.
Ramona, maybe one thing that I can just add is we, from the foundation side, we are going to have a meeting next week with our members because we want to start a small committee that can start putting pressure on medical aids and the Department of Health, because there's no policy framework in place yet. So we want to start that process. It's going to take a long time. Because apparently it must start with the policy before it can go really out to the medical aids and other hospitals. So this is a fight that we are definitely going to enter into, and we need all the voices we can have. So I'll get your email address and then I'm going to forward the invitation to you. Then you can
Sure.
please, if you can attend our first meeting, that would be next week.
Sure,
Okay.
sure, Greta. Thank you.
I missed that question, but I'll see it later. Sorry, I got cut off. I'll watch it later. But I suppose it was about the regulatory, the issues in medical
About
aids.
the pricing and the cost.
Pricing.
Yeah.
That's going to be a tricky one.
Yeah, but the more patients there are, the cheaper the treatment will be. That is a key. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got something called the prescribed minimum benefits in South Africa, and legislation determines what a prescribed minimum benefit is. That allows us, like someone that's in a wheelchair and has limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, to be registered as a PMB. So that the trick will be to get limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, any kind of medicine, any kind of treatment, as a PMB, so that it's protected by law, that they have to pay it.
Do you refer to a certain code for the national health system? Because that code already exists. They use it in Europe, they use it in the United States. So that code exists. It only needs to be acknowledged by South Africa.
So the South African regulator. So same thing with the vaccines in a similar manner. The vaccines were approved by the FDA. They just read through all the research and then they do their thing and then they approve it.
Yeah.
So maybe a similar thing can happen to make this, but it is, I mean, obviously we have a different situation in South Africa. We've got a different financial situation and all of that, and the state fiscus, and on the one hand, and then the how much the medical aids can pay on the other hand. So it is a lot of actuarial things that has to be looked at.
It is sometimes frustrating that when a treatment is there or a trial is there, then the FDA have to prove for the US, the EMA have to prove for Europe. And we have seen in COVID how it could be speeded up when they work together. And I hope that for rare diseases, that will be the future, that they work together, because it saves time that we doesn't have.
I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail, but on the last limb-girdle muscular dystrophy conference, I think the previous registrar of the FDA spoke, and he was saying the reason why things are approved more easier these days is because they don't need all these placebo trials for everything. Like you'll know with the LNGD, it's only a few people. And also the science already exists. So all the research is already there.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste.
Yeah, it's true. But it is also part of how researchers think, researchers still think that they need a mouse to in the first stage, but a mouse has never been beneficial for a human being, so they can cut that process. So I hope in the near future it will be more more on quicker. Yeah.
But also the question is, do we have I mean, we definitely have great scientists here in South Africa, but you know, on the gene therapy side, I don't know. I mean, it's if you speak to a neurologist, well, my GP thinks gene therapy is science fiction.
Yeah, I hope that will change soon.
Me too.
Yeah.
Romana? Would you like-
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, maybe not related to clinical trials, but I'm trying to source the information about a COVID vaccine, whether now we got a, I mean, there is a drive in my kid's school, and we are not able to decide whether to put him in COVID-19 vaccine now because he just turned 12. Yeah, what are the suggestions from your side? I mean,
To get a vaccine, getting a vaccine won't exclude you from a trial in the next stage. So you can look on the World Muscle Society. Their statement is that you get your vaccination as soon as possible because COVID is worse than getting the vaccination.
okay.
It won't interfere with the AAV vector that they need for the gene transfer.
That is one side of it, and he's normal because of his disease now. It will not have any impact. We were worried that okay, his muscles will again have a problem. That is not a case, right, Aleksandra?
We know from vaccinations when you inject in the muscle that can harm that it will harm the muscle. Okay, so you have to be aware of rhabdomyolysis, which is it can happen, but it doesn't happen very often. But you need to be aware that it can happen, and then you need to go to the hospital. But so far, all patients that are, and I can send you the information from the Nationwide Children's and from UMass in the United States, where they state that patients with muscular dystrophy should get their vaccination.
Yeah, I read that in magazine in issue 1 of Winter magazine also that they're clearly doctor is saying that yes, we need to go ahead. Yeah. Thanks, Aleksandra.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if I would be in such a good state sitting here with you if I didn't take the vaccine. You know?
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. Were you scared when you heard that you had COVID?
Excuse me, when did I?
Were you scared when you heard that you had COVID?
Not really, because I mean, I did take the vaccine. I was scared the night before I was diagnosed because I was watching my smartwatch, and my smartwatch, as I said, my heart rate was double what my resting heart rate normally is lying down. So normally it's 68 or 67, and I had 140 to 120. And my smartwatch was constantly going red. So that I wasn't scared. I was just, this is concerning. I have to get to a doctor. And I went to the doctor on Monday and I got the test.
Yeah.
So I think the fever scared me. But when I got the diagnosis, it just confirmed what I kind of knew.
Yeah.
But there's no point in getting stressed out. If you stress out, you're going to have anxiety, and it's going to make things worse. And luckily, I could measure my SpO2, and my SpO2 was fine all along. I don't really have serious problems with my SpO2.
Nice.
Well, I have no problems with my SpO2. So that's a good thing. Yet, I don't know if it's going to change. Who knows? It's one of those 50-50 things. It will or it won't.
And on which day are you now after diagnosed?
Monday. From Monday, so it's what?
Okay, yeah.
4 days?
Yeah.
So things could still, could be something, but at this point I feel fine.
Good. Yeah.
They say with a new variant, Marinus, everyone is saying the gestation period is 1 week. So you have, I mean, in all possibilities you passed that stage already. Yeah.
Wow, I'll be this next Monday. So
Next
I'm
Monday.
I'm isolating right now
Mm.
from everyone until Monday. Not even my assistant is coming. My assistant will come on Monday again. So it's all fun and games right now.
Yeah.
I live alone, so it's not very difficult for me. It's not as different as my everyday life. It's just that you miss my assistant comes twice a week, so I miss that, and then I go to physio twice a week, and I haven't been to physio because my physio was on holiday, and when she got back, I got COVID. So this is the longest I haven't had physio in 10 years.
Yeah.
And I feel itchy. I need to do my physiotherapy.
Yeah.
This
I
might
won't be able.
Marina, this might be a good point to ask everyone actually. I mean, you speak about physio. Like
Yes.
what would be the interesting the next interesting talk for you all for the next support group? Like I could organize a physiotherapist or a nutritionist, or who has any suggestions?
Yeah, physiotherapist is good. I mean, we can do nutrition as well, but not. I mean, you can do two separate ones.
Yeah, Ramana.
Yeah, we touched upon yesterday, Eric. I mean, good psychologist. If someone who knows about LGMD, I mean, if you have accepted it is fine, but during the stage of acceptance, that would be very helpful if we have someone who can take us along this journey. I mean, currently I'm going through that. Actually, me and my family are going through that. Yeah, now.
Yeah.
I mean, Eric, maybe a few topics, like, and you can spread them out. Like, I would definitely like to speak about sleep testing and sleep apnea and things like that. Because I mean, I've been looking at my smartwatch for a couple of months to determine whether I have sleep apnea, and I will definitely go to a pulmonologist this year. But at this point in time, it doesn't look like I have low SpO2 while I'm sleeping. But that's not the only thing you have to look at. You have to look at oxygen, and you have to look at the carbon dioxide. It's both. And there is a neurologist she's doing sleep studies. It's a young neurologist that I heard of, and she does sleep studies. I'm not sure if you'll be able to get a doctor like to speak to us.
Let's see. This, we can.
Because I know Beata, my physiotherapist, she doesn't like public speaking that much, but I can also ask her. But she spoke to that neurologist, I think a patient did go and see Beata, and I know that she did speak to that a neurologist, and she told me she does sleep studies. So that would be interesting, a neurologist that actually does sleep studies.
Yeah, there's also a physio who's a part of the MDF, and she's done a lot of studies around the lungs and breathing, intercostal muscle.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. She was on Facebook the other day. Cannibal now. She was on Facebook. That's it.
Henri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it not her? Oh.
Yeah, it's Henri. I was just about to say that maybe we can approach Henri. She is a physio, but she specializes in breathing.
That's
and
perfect.
maybe that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So that's also a good idea. And for me, the most important thing would be sleep apnea and going forward, because it's one of those things that you don't know. I'm astonished that I'm so far on my limb girdle, and I haven't had serious breathing issues. I've had breathing issues, but it's only when I put myself on a serious stress. But under normal circumstances, I mean, I tested myself yesterday with the oximeter, and it was 99. So I was going, yay! But yeah, you don't know where, you don't know if that's going to continue like that. So definitely keep study is very important.
Melissa and Mpeli, do you have any other suggestions?
For me, a big concern, I'd like to know how pregnancy affects muscular dystrophy. So for me, I actually found out I had muscular dystrophy after I had my son. I would like to know if it's linked. Is there a link between the muscle regression and the hormones you have in pregnancy or anything like that?
Okay. Yeah.
Which type of muscular dystrophy do you have, Melissa?
So like I said to you, I haven't actually done gene testing. I had a neurologist test me and he said I have limb-girdle and he doesn't see the progression
yeah.
that I'm at. He doesn't see that a genetic test was necessary. But listening to tonight's chat, maybe it is.
Yeah.
Knowing your subtype is so important. I mean, I only knew my subtype until about 2018. And I started with dystrophy when I was 8. And if I'd known the subtype, I could just see it mapped. The progression was mapped according to, from 8 until now. So it's really handy to know.
Do you guys maybe have suggestions of places that I could do the gene testing and how it works?
Well,
Illuminate. Illuminate and the Lincoln projects. Yeah. I think you have that, Eric, right?
Yeah, so there are a few options. Gerda knows the free options and things, and we've been speaking to Invitae, and they are willing to do a cheaper tests if we go through MDF, and they are based in California, and they send a kit and you spit into it, and then it packages it in a certain way, and you send it back, and they are excellent. Yeah, and we've got a geneticist. Geneticists as well that can do referrals.
Please, if you could get me in contact with those people. And then I also want to know, so my son is now 2. He doesn't have symptoms or we haven't seen anything, but I'm concerned, as far as I know, the only way to test is to do the muscle biopsy. And I mean, at 2 years old, I don't want to put him through that.
No, you don't have to.
The saliva is enough.
Is it enough?
I mean, a 2-year-old drools enough. We can definitely fill a vial of.
I'll just give him a dummy.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely crucial to get genetic testing. I mean, before I got tested, I was constantly going onto the internet. Now, I have this one. No. I have this one. Oh no, maybe I have this one. The moment I got my test, I've got the perfect one that I knew it couldn't be anything else. I stopped doing that. I knew what the progression was.
Yeah.
Okay. There were a few things that we didn't know that we picked up on the conference, and I mean, everyone that has limb-girdle muscular dystrophy should watch that international conference. It's long, but when you skip through some of the boring parts and you focus on the important parts. That's the thing that gave me the most information since I've been diagnosed.
Yes.
And that was in 1997.
Where do I find that?
I'll post
you can
it.
email it. Yeah, post it or email it.
Yeah, I've got the link to the YouTube recordings.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Please, I would appreciate that.
Yeah. And one is coming up in May, May 20th. It is there. The details are there in the magazine. So we can.
Okay. So there's another one coming up soon.
Yeah, May 20th.
Yeah.
May 20th.
I think you refer to the summit, right, Ramona?
That's correct.
The summit 2022. Yeah.
2022 summit.
And you can also look back the International Limb-Girdle Conference in 2019. Yeah. In Chicago. And 2021.
Aleksandra, maybe this is a good time to end with you talking about the different organizations that we can register with them, like for example, the Speak Foundation.
Yes.
And
Okay.
yeah,
I first want to say something to Ramona. Ramona, your family is just diagnosed, and I always say the whole family is diagnosed because it affects everyone. And I want to give you a thing from my heart. If I have known when my kid was diagnosed what I knew now, I would have worried so much less, and I would have enjoyed so many things more spontaneous in life. So I would say to you, try to enjoy every day and get the maximum out of life, because that's the most important thing. And having young kids diagnosed with LGMD, I really have the vision that their future will be okay. So I want to give that from my heart for your whole family.
Thanks,
And
Aleksandra.
then
Thanks.
the other thing about the foundation, so the Speak Foundation has very reliable information online. Then you have the Limb-Girdle Awareness Foundation from Carol A. So the Speak Foundation is from Catherine Bryant. It's lgmd.org. Then you have Limb-Girdle Awareness Foundation from Carol Abram, which is about advocacy and about Limb-Girdle Awareness Day, Rare Disease Day, where we have activities. And then you have the subgroups of all kind of LGMD types. Stichting Spierkracht, the foundation I raised in the Netherlands, was originally for the Netherlands and only for LGMD 2D, but we opened up global and for all types, because I really believe that we need to walk this road together, shoulder to shoulder, and we all have the same goal. If you have 2A, 2B, 2C, 2E, 2D, we all want a treatment, and I think we will get there together. The MDA in the US and MDUK in the UK are kind of umbrella organizations. And your organization in South Africa is also an umbrella organization, Eric?
I don't know actually. Gada.
You have multiple types, right?
Oh yes, exactly. We've got multiple types. Yeah.
Yeah.
Under the MBF. Exactly.
And you also work global, right?
Well, now we are.
Yeah.
We've got We've got a few.
We're
Yes.
in our baby shoes with global, what is the word I'm looking for? Global network. So yeah, we're in the very baby shoes still, but we're getting there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's very important to have reliable information, and you can find a lot of the internet, but always track if it is reliable information, because people also write something on the internet and then everybody is walking after it. So for instance, today I ran into a comment of someone who said there are so many people dying because of gene therapy. It's not true. There was one patient that died recently in December in the 1B trial for Duchenne from the Pfizer was the company. And that's very tragic, because you don't want that in a trial. But it is not true that there are so many patients dying because of gene therapy. So always try to find reliable information. Yes, so I will make a list of the MD foundations and send it to Eric, and then Eric can share it with you. Is that okay?
That is fine, Aleksandra. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Version 1 complete.